Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tea with Z. My name is Zimo Solanki, and it's an absolute pleasure to be joining each and every one of you again on another episode this morning. And if you haven't done so already, give me a like, give me a heart. You know the deal. Let's get some energy exchange pumping because it's absolutely awesome to be joining each and every one of you again this morning. And if you haven't done so already, check out the description box below where you can see a link also shown on the screen to join the Limitless Network. Now, the Limitless Network is a group of like-minded people who help others and help themselves on the journey of health and well-being. So feel free, come and join this community as we grow and expand it. So let's talk about now, as you may have read the headline here or the headlines circling the globe this morning, there's been a lot of talk about a punch in the face. And if you didn't know the Oscars were on, I didn't know the Oscars were on. It's something that I don't follow it. I certainly woke up to the news that, hey, the Oscars were on, and hey, there was an altercation at the Oscars involving Will Smith and Chris Rock. Now, if you haven't heard about that yet, go and check that out now. Who knows, real or fake? That's the ultimate question at the moment. But one thing that is real is that sometimes jumping into business, sometimes jumping into a healthpreneurial journey, sometimes to empower yourself to better health and well-being, we often try new things. We want to step out of old habits, old routines, break routines that haven't served us. And sometimes when we do that, sometimes that when we go to step into the unknown, it sometimes might feel like a punch in the face. The lessons learned along the way, the new experiences we enjoy or endure, sometimes feels like a punch in the face. Now, I'm not talking a literal punch in the face. I'm talking about that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of frustration, excitement, elatement, worry, fear, whatever it might be when we're trying something new. Sometimes it feels like that we've just been knocked out, and all of this information has just been coming to us and flooding to us as well. Now, when you look at trying something new or breaking routines, and as we spoke about in yesterday's episode, we spoke about what happens when we break a routine and identifying, well, what was the cause of us breaking that routine to start with, not just looking at the symptoms. But it's really important that when we go to break a routine that actually doesn't serve us and to create something new, to try something new, to go on a new journey, that we understand what we're going on that new journey for. And as a result of that, we can then start to plan and understand what is happening along that journey. And rather than feeling like we're just getting punched in the face, we can actually be weathering any turbulence along the way. We can actually be empowered to get to our objective on much smoother waters. And so let me just ask you a question. When you step into a new routine, when you step into a new plan, and say, for example, a great one is a New Year's resolution. And now we're well into 2022. We're well into 2022. But I bring this up all the time because how many of you are still actually sticking to a New Year's resolution? And so often we make these resolutions off the cuff. We set these massive objectives for ourselves, but we don't actually plan to achieve those objectives. We don't set milestones along the way that we can hit. We firstly don't make the objective SMART. So already we're not specific enough. We don't really measure it. Yes, we're time-based, but how realistic or how attainable actually is it? So let me just jump on here. I'm going to just quickly give a shout out to Namit quickly. He's just asked me a question. You mentioned the word healthpreneurial. Question: is it harder to differentiate or do something new in a highly regulated and standardized industry such as pharmacies? Great question, Namit. Great question. And probably one that I'll definitely look to answer. Well, you know what? Let's just answer that now. Let's go with the flow. So, trying something new is a great point for this question. And as we're talking about right now, planning and trying for something new is what Namit's question is about. So, for me personally, when we had our pharmacy and even the government themselves are actually promoting us to actually step away on being reliant on the funding of government. So, even though we are so highly regulated, and the practices that we have from a dispensing point of view is legally standardized, There are a lot of other avenues in terms of professional services that we can offer, a lot of other ways in which we can interact and engage with our community that aren't standardized, that are unique within different communities, that allows for innovation, allows for uniqueness, allows for things to be changed. And as a result, even in a highly regulated environment, and when Namit, you asked about a standardized industry, I refer to the standardized practices in terms of the legal things that we need to do. So, in terms of dispensing and counseling and ensuring the therapeutic outcomes for our patient have been met, ensuring that we're following all quality use of medicines principles. And when we look at that framework, 100%, it's a standardized framework to ensure consistency of care. But that is the lowest benchmark, in my opinion. That is the lowest benchmark. And so anything above and beyond that we can do, then that opens up the world to us. And being a healthpreneur or a health entrepreneur allows us to look at things a little bit more uniquely, to look at things a little bit differently, and allow us to cater to not only the wants, but actually the needs of our communities, both today and tomorrow. So, for example, in our pharmacy, we catered to many different demographics. We catered to and ran specialized programs to different sections of our community, whether it be the elderly or even school-based children. We ran different programs to assist in that. So, is it harder to differentiate or do something new? No, it's not. It takes the willingness to change. It takes the planning to change. A highly regulated and standardized industry for some might trap that mindset to avoid change, to think that I've got to just fit in this small box. But it is a framework. It is a framework that's designed to set a minimum standard. And like with all frameworks that identify a minimum standard, you can build upon those standards. Take the hospitality industry, for example. We all know that there's minimum standards in food preparation, yet you go to finer dining restaurants and they up the ante. They have higher standards versus maybe your local takeaway shop. And so there's different opportunities, even though, say, in the food industry, that is, of course, a regulated industry in terms of hygiene and has standardized practices. But the same goes for then in the health industry, where you've got a standard, but you can obviously exceed that standard, not just meet it. So it's not harder to do it. You just have to be willing to do it, willing to plan to do it. So great question, Amit. I hope that answered your question, mate. So thanks for joining us as well, mate. And that's what we love about Tea with Z. Let's just go with the flow, but very relevant to today's point, to today's topic. Sometimes without that planning, sometimes when we don't hit that standard, sometimes when we break routine to try to do something new or to change things up, or the routine already doesn't serve us and we're meeting a standard that's even not at the minimum standard, sometimes the punch in the face is a regulator coming up and telling us, hey, you're not actually meeting the required standards. You need to fix A, B, C, D. Or the punch in the face comes by trying something new and we haven't planned for it, or we haven't outlined the contingencies or really clearly defined the objective from the start. And so by taking the time to plan and to understand the opportunities, rather than sitting within the framework and boxing yourself in, despite whatever regulations might be in place, despite whatever standardization of practice might be in place. You know, another great example is the taxi industry. And you look at the taxi industry as a very regulated, well, previously regulated and standardized form of practice. And a disruptor came in and changed the game. And so whilst we are a regulated and standardized industry right now, there are disruptors each and every day, I guess, impacting the way in which we offer our health services and our health services to our community. And so when you look at those disruptors right now, yeah, maybe they might seem like a punch in the face, but the writing's on the wall. So how do we adapt? How do we actually change our routines? How do we look at our systems, processes, workflows, and innovate to create new ways of doing things, despite what is known as regulation and standardized practice? Because like I said, that's just a framework. So we need to change our mindset to go, you know what? That's the minimum bar, but I've got the opportunity to exceed it. And when we look at that opportunity to exceed it, we need to make sure that we start putting a plan in place so that we don't get punched in the face along the way, so that we can navigate the obstacles, roadblocks, or challenges that we face or we will face as we go on that new journey. So, great question, Amit, and thanks so much for joining us. And if you do have any other questions, feel free. Do what Amit did. Drop a comment, and I'm more than happy to, chat about it. But that's it from me today. That's our time together. And like I said from the start, if you haven't done so already, feel free. Check out the Limitless Network in the description box below. And I look forward to catching up with you on another episode of Tea with Z tomorrow. Have an amazing day and bye for now.